Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, first published in 1998, stands as a seminal work in the realm of strategy and self-help literature. This comprehensive exploration of power dynamics has sold over 1.7 million copies worldwide, influencing leaders across corporate boardrooms, political arenas, and personal development circles. Robert Greene, the author, is a renowned strategist and writer whose works delve into the psychology of power and human behavior. His meticulous research draws from centuries of historical examples, blending insights from philosophers like Machiavelli and Sun Tzu with modern psychological understanding. At its core, the book presents 48 distinct laws of power, each illustrated with historical anecdotes and practical applications. These laws are organized into thematic groups, focusing on strategy, perception management, and the critical role of timing in wielding influence. Greene argues that power is not an innate trait, but a calculated game, cultivated through keen observation of human behavior, strategic adaptation to circumstances, and deliberate actions that exploit psychological weaknesses and opportunities. Each law is enriched with historical examples from influential figures such as Cleopatra, Cardinal Richelieu, and even modern leaders like Steve Jobs. The principles emphasize elements of deception, forming strategic alliances, and executing decisive maneuvers to maintain and expand influence. Despite being published over 2 decades ago, the book's insights remain strikingly relevant in our contemporary world. From leveraging social media for attention and influence, to navigating AI-driven decision-making processes, to grappling with ethical considerations in power dynamics, Greene's laws continue to provide valuable frameworks for understanding and navigating power in the modern era. At the heart of Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power lies a fundamental premise. Power is not an inherent trait or birthright, but rather a strategic game that anyone can learn to play. This core concept transforms power from an abstract force into a practical skill set, emphasizing that mastery comes through deliberate cultivation rather than natural endowment. Power is cultivated through 3 essential elements: strategic action, keen observation, and constant adaptation. Strategic action involves making calculated moves and decisions that position you advantageously, always thinking several steps ahead like a master chess player. Keen observation means developing the ability to read people, situations, and opportunities with precision, identifying patterns and potential leverage points. Constant adaptation is the third pillar, requiring flexibility to adjust your approach as circumstances change. This dynamic process ensures that power remains fluid and responsive, rather than rigid and predictable. Success in this game demands a deep understanding of human nature, recognizing universal motivations like fear, vanity, and ambition that can be leveraged effectively. Equally crucial is the ability to exploit weaknesses in others, turning their vulnerabilities into opportunities for advancement. Finally, mastering the art of deception involves concealing your true intentions while projecting strength and control, creating an aura of mystery and unpredictability that keeps others off balance. This comprehensive framework positions power not as a static possession, but as an ongoing strategic endeavor that rewards those who approach it with discipline, insight, and cunning. Law 1 of the 48 Laws of Power states, "Never outshine the master." At its core, this law addresses human psychology. People in positions of power often feel threatened by subordinates who appear more capable or intelligent. By deliberately holding back your full potential, you create a sense of security that fosters loyalty and opens doors to advancement. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. Historically, this principle is illustrated in courtly life. A talented advisor who consistently outshines his ruler risks being perceived as a rival. Such individuals often face exile or elimination, as their success undermines the monarch's authority. In contrast, those who subtly elevate their superiors while contributing value thrive in their roles. In practical terms, apply this law by framing your contributions as extensions of your superior's vision. Present ideas as if they were inspired by their guidance. Publicly attribute successes to them while handling the details privately. This builds their confidence in you while advancing your own influence within the organization. The risks of violating this law are significant. Overconfidence in your abilities can lead to envy from above, resulting in sabotage, demotion, or complete removal from influential circles. Many careers have been derailed by subordinates who unintentionally threaten their superiors' egos. Conversely, mastering this law yields substantial benefits. By making your superiors feel secure and superior, you cultivate mentors who advocate for your advancement. This strategic humility opens pathways to greater responsibility, resources, and ultimately, genuine power that lasts. Law 2 warns us to be cautious with friends who may betray us out of envy and instead learn to utilize former enemies for greater loyalty. The core principle states that friends can become spoiled and tyrannical, aroused to envy, while former enemies have more to prove and thus offer stronger loyalty. Psychologically, friends often feel entitled to your success, leading to resentment and betrayal, whereas enemies converted to allies work harder to prove their worth. Historically, Julius Caesar's assassination by his friend Brutus demonstrates how trusted allies can turn deadly, a stark reminder of the law's wisdom. In modern contexts such as business, hiring former competitors can create loyal partners who bring fresh perspectives and dedication to prove themselves. This law teaches us to navigate relationships strategically, recognizing that true loyalty may come from unexpected sources while guarding against the perils of complacency in friendships. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. This fundamental law of power teaches that you must keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelop them in enough smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. Consider the historical example of Joseph Stalin during the Soviet purges in the 1930s. Stalin concealed his true intentions of eliminating political rivals behind a facade of loyalty and reform. By guiding his enemies down the wrong path with false alliances and misleading communications, he enveloped them in smoke until it was too late for them to mount any defense. This left his opponents completely off balance, unable to prepare for the devastating purges that followed. From a psychological perspective, concealing your intentions prevents opponents from preparing effective defenses. When people don't know what you're truly up to, they become paralyzed by uncertainty and fear. This hesitation gives you the advantage of surprise. The human mind naturally tries to predict and prepare for threats, but without clear signals about your motives, opponents are forced to waste energy on speculation rather than action. In the modern world, this law manifests in disinformation campaigns, where concealing true intentions through strategic misinformation guides opponents down wrong paths. Political campaigns and corporate rivalries often use this tactic, creating smokescreens of false narratives that distract from real objectives. By the time the deception is revealed, the damage is done and positions have shifted irreversibly in your favor. This principle echoes the ancient wisdom of Sun Tzu, who wrote that all warfare is based on deception. In both military strategy and power dynamics, concealment maintains the element of surprise and prevents opponents from developing effective countermeasures. The key is to create enough confusion and misdirection that your true intentions remain hidden until execution becomes inevitable. Think of it like a chess game, where skilled players use misdirection to lure opponents into vulnerable positions. By concealing your true strategy and guiding them down wrong paths with feints and sacrifices, you position yourself for the decisive strike. The opponent, focused on defending against false threats, is completely unprepared for your actual intentions. In summary, Law 3 teaches that concealment of intentions is the cornerstone of strategic power. By keeping others in the dark about your true purposes, you prevent them from mounting effective defenses and maintain the initiative in any power dynamic. Law 4 teaches that true power in communication comes from restraint rather than excess. When attempting to impress or influence others through speech, verbosity actually diminishes your perceived authority and control. The principle reveals that even commonplace ideas can appear profound if delivered with intentional vagueness and brevity, creating a sphinx-like aura that captivates and intimidates. This strategy extends to making banal statements seem original through deliberate ambiguity. Powerful individuals throughout history have mastered the art of saying less to maintain an aura of superiority and mystery, preventing the common pitfall of verbal overexposure that can lead to foolish revelations. The law underscores how excessive speech increases the risk of errors, while silence preserves power. By analyzing this principle deeply, we see its roots in psychological dynamics, where listeners project meaning onto your words, giving you leverage. Historical figures demonstrate how brevity commands respect and authority. In comprehensive analysis, this law promotes strategic communication where less is more. The psychological impact creates mystery, forcing others to interpret your intentions. Practically, it applies to negotiations where silence pressures opponents. In modern contexts like digital communication, it translates to quality content over endless posting. Law 5 emphasizes that reputation forms the foundation of power. Through a strong reputation alone, you can intimidate others and achieve victories without direct confrontation. Reputation serves as the cornerstone of power. It enables you to intimidate adversaries and secure wins through perception alone, rather than through physical or direct means. However, when reputation falters, vulnerability sets in. You become exposed to assaults from every direction, as others seize opportunities to exploit the weakened perception. To protect yourself, cultivate an unassailable reputation. Remain vigilant against potential assaults and neutralize threats before they can materialize, maintaining strategic control. Conversely, undermine opponents by strategically damaging their reputations. Create vulnerabilities that allow public sentiment to judge and ultimately destroy them, while you remain detached. In summary, reputation demands vigilant protection. It serves as both your most potent defense and your sharpest offensive tool in the pursuit of power. Law 6, court attention at all costs, reveals that in the realm of power, visibility is paramount. Everything is judged by its appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. Never let yourself get lost in the crowd or buried in oblivion. Stand out. Be conspicuous at all costs. Make yourself a magnet of attention by appearing larger, more colorful, more mysterious than the bland and timid masses. The principle here is that power dynamics favor the visible. People form opinions based on surface-level impressions, not underlying realities. Invisibility leads to being overlooked, which equates to powerlessness. This law urges deliberate self-promotion to command attention and influence. To illustrate standing out, consider a crowd where one figure emerges distinctly. This visual metaphor shows how blending in results in oblivion, while contrast draws focus and potential power. Historically, Cleopatra mastered this by presenting herself as enigmatic and alluring, using spectacle to secure alliances. In warfare, Sun Tzu advised visible displays of strength to intimidate foes. These examples demonstrate how attention becomes a strategic tool. In modern times, social media amplifies this law. Influencers court attention through bold, colorful posts, turning personal brands into magnets for followers and opportunities. The magnet attracting attention symbolizes this pull, where mindfulness and strategy draw focus effectively. Conspicuous appearance extends to personal style, as seen in this fashionable figure exuding confidence and mystery. Such visual cues signal power and draw admiration, making one memorable in social or professional settings. Psychologically, humans are wired to notice the exceptional. This law leverages attention biases, creating opportunities for influence and alliances. Yet, excessive attention can seem manipulative, risking backlash if not balanced with authenticity. In business, branding demands standing out amid noise. Corporate examples show how distinctive visuals, like this colorful modern building, attract clients. Surveys indicate 35% of executives apply such strategies, though ethical debates arise over manipulation. Product branding, as in this handshake scene, uses attention to create memorable identities. By appearing larger and more colorful, businesses forge stronger connections, but must avoid crossing into overconfidence, aligning with Law 47's caution. Ultimately, Law 6 teaches that attention is a currency of power. Master it through calculated visibility, but temper with discretion. In our digital age where algorithms favor the conspicuous, this law's wisdom endures, offering tools for influence while warning against the perils of excess. Law 7 teaches the strategic art of delegation while maintaining ownership of the results. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. This approach leverages the efforts of others to advance your position while preserving your reputation and authority. The law emphasizes efficiency through delegation. By having others perform the labor, you conserve your resources for higher level strategy and decision making. This creates an impression of effortless productivity and superior capability. Psychologically, this law exploits human memory and attribution bias. When work is delegated effectively, observers attribute success to your vision and leadership, not the individual efforts behind the scenes. This builds your reputation while maintaining team productivity. Historically, Louis XIV of France exemplified this law perfectly. He delegated complex administrative tasks to skilled ministers and advisors, allowing him to focus on symbolic leadership and court politics. The success of his reign was attributed to his genius, while the minister's contributions faded into history. In modern contexts, this law applies to business leadership and project management. Successful executives delegate technical work to specialists, while positioning themselves as the visionary behind major achievements. This is evident in how CEOs are credited with company growth despite team efforts. The fundamental principle remains: maximize your impact by leveraging others' capabilities. Strategic delegation, combined with careful credit management, creates sustainable power and influence in any field. Law 8 teaches the strategic art of using bait to control interactions. By making others come to you on your terms, you shift the balance of power entirely in your favor. The fundamental principle is that forcing someone into action puts you in control. Instead of pursuing them, you create irresistible incentives that draw them toward you, disrupting their own strategies. This approach is superior because it preserves your resources while your opponent invests theirs. By abandoning their plans to chase your bait, they become vulnerable to your counterattack. Offer tempting gains that seem too good to resist, then strike decisively when they are most exposed. This maintains your position of strength and ensures you dictate the outcome. Consider the fisherman who uses carefully chosen lures to attract fish. The bait represents the irresistible promise of gain that draws the target closer, exactly like this law's principle of luring with fabulous rewards. A spider weaves a web and waits, using the lure of trapped insects to attract prey. This embodies the patience required in Law 8, where you set up the bait and let others approach, conserving your energy while they exhaust themselves. In chess, advanced players use bait to lure opponents into disadvantageous positions, sacrificing minor pieces to gain greater control. This mirrors how Law 8 applies in competitive scenarios, where the bait leads to a decisive advantage. Historically, this law appears in military tactics and diplomacy. Sun Tzu advocated baiting enemies to abandon fortified positions. Cleopatra's seduction of Mark Antony exemplifies using personal allure as bait to secure political control. In contemporary settings, businesses employ free trials or exclusive previews as bait to convert prospects into loyal customers. Politicians use campaign promises as lures to build coalitions and secure votes. Psychologically, bait works because people are motivated by potential rewards. It preys on biases such as optimism and greed, causing individuals to focus on gains while ignoring the associated dangers, giving you the upper hand. Law 9 teaches us that winning through actions rather than arguments is the superior strategy. Arguments may seem to win the moment, but they create lasting resentment that undermines your influence. Instead, demonstrate your point through actions, allowing others to see the truth for themselves without confrontation. This approach builds genuine agreement and avoids the ill will that arguments inevitably stir up. Psychologically, arguments trigger the opponent's ego defenses, leading to stubborn resistance and resentment that can persist long after the debate ends. Actions, however, bypass this resistance by providing tangible evidence that speaks for itself. Historical examples show leaders like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. who achieved profound change not through debates, but through consistent, principled actions that inspired others to follow. In modern contexts, this law applies to leadership and persuasion. Rather than arguing about your competence, demonstrate it through results. Silence in the face of criticism, letting your achievements speak louder than words ever could. The key is to focus on tangible demonstrations that align with your goals, fostering voluntary agreement rather than coerced compliance. Law 10 teaches us about the infectious nature of emotions. Just as diseases spread from person to person, emotional states like misery and unhappiness can contaminate those around them. This law warns that associating with the unhappy and unlucky can draw their misfortune onto you, potentially leading to your own downfall. The law illustrates this with the metaphor of helping a drowning man. While your intentions might be good, attempting to rescue someone in distress can pull you down with them. The unfortunate often create cycles of bad luck that affect everyone in their vicinity, making it dangerous to get too close. This principle extends to how misfortune seems to follow certain people. The unlucky not only attract negative circumstances, but also radiate this energy to those around them. By staying in their presence, you risk becoming infected by their pattern of misfortune. Instead of risking contamination from negative influences, the law advises seeking out positive associations. Surround yourself with happy and fortunate people whose good energy and success can be equally contagious. This strategic choice helps protect and even enhance your own position. Law 11 teaches us that true power comes from cultivating dependency. To maintain your independence, you must ensure others need you for their happiness and prosperity. The more indispensable you become, the more freedom you gain. This concept is vividly illustrated through the marionette image, where one figure controls another through strings of dependency. Similarly, the climbing structure shows how people build upon each other's support, creating chains of reliance. Historically, this law appears in the strategies of powerful figures like Louis XIV. The Sun King kept French nobility dependent on his favor by controlling access to wealth, titles, and influence. This prevented them from becoming self-sufficient and challenging his authority. In modern contexts, this principle applies to leadership and entrepreneurship. Successful business leaders create value that others cannot easily replicate, ensuring their continued reliance. Never teach them enough so that they can do without you. This preserves your strategic advantage. Law 13 teaches a fundamental truth about human nature. When asking for help, never appeal to someone's mercy or remind them of past gratitude. Instead, frame your request around their self-interest, emphasizing mutual benefits. This law recognizes that people are naturally motivated by personal gain rather than obligation. Psychologically, gratitude is fleeting and can create resentment when reminded, while highlighting benefits taps into a more reliable drive. Historically, leaders like Cardinal Richelieu mastered this by crafting alliances that served everyone's interests, avoiding the pitfalls of debt-based appeals. In today's world, this principle applies to business negotiations, partnerships, and personal relationships, where successful outcomes often hinge on demonstrating clear advantages for all involved. However, use this strategy wisely. Overemphasis on benefits can appear manipulative, so balance it with authenticity and ethical consideration to build lasting, trustworthy alliances. Law 14 of the 48 Laws of Power teaches us to pose as a friend while working as a spy. In the game of power, knowledge is your most valuable weapon, and gathering intelligence on your rivals gives you an unbeatable advantage. By appearing trustworthy and building genuine-seeming relationships, you can access information that others guard carefully. The essence of this law lies in strategic deception. You present yourself as an ally, someone who shares interests and can be trusted with confidences. Meanwhile, your true purpose is to observe, listen, and collect intelligence that could prove crucial in future conflicts. This dual role requires careful balance. You must seem genuinely friendly while remaining detached and analytical. This concept has deep historical roots, appearing in ancient strategic texts. Sun Tzu's The Art of War emphasized knowing your enemy as thoroughly as you know yourself. Throughout history, successful leaders have maintained networks of informants who posed as friends or neutral observers, feeding back critical information about rivals' plans, weaknesses, and intentions. To implement this law effectively, start by building genuine trust. Share interests and experiences that create bonds. Ask seemingly innocent questions that gradually reveal your target's plans, alliances, and vulnerabilities. Pay close attention to nonverbal cues, body language, tone of voice, and behavioral patterns that might betray true feelings or intentions. While gathering intelligence is powerful, it's important to understand the boundaries. In legitimate contexts, this might involve market research or competitive analysis in business. However, crossing into illegal territory like corporate espionage or state secrets can have severe consequences. The law emphasizes ethical intelligence gathering through social means rather than illegal intrusion. Effective spying requires a systematic approach. Start with identifying what information you need most. Then cultivate relationships with people close to your target. Collect data through observation and conversation. Analyze patterns and verify information through multiple sources. Finally, use the intelligence strategically without revealing your methods. Beyond mere information gathering, this law allows for offensive intelligence operations. You can plant misleading information that causes your rivals to make poor decisions. By sowing subtle discord, you can turn allies against each other, weakening their position without direct confrontation. Use intermediaries when possible to maintain your cover and create plausible deniability. Throughout history, spies have used various tools, from hidden messages and disguises to modern digital surveillance. The key is not the technology, but the human element. Building relationships, reading people, and maintaining long-term trust are still the most effective intelligence tools available. In today's digital age, intelligence gathering has evolved, but the principles remain the same. Social media provides unprecedented access to personal information. Professional networks offer insights into business strategies. However, the core skill remains the same, appearing as a friend while observing and analyzing. Success depends on patience, discretion, and the ability to maintain your cover indefinitely. In summary, Law 14 teaches that true power comes from knowing your rivals better than they know themselves. By posing as a friend while working as a spy, you gain access to information that can prevent threats, expose weaknesses, and create opportunities. Remember that the most dangerous spies are those who seem most trustworthy. Use this knowledge wisely, and you'll always stay several steps ahead of the competition. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. All great leaders since Moses have known that a feared enemy must be crushed completely. Sometimes they have learned this the hard way. The core principle of Law 15 is absolute. When facing a formidable adversary, partial victory is no victory at all. Great leaders throughout history have understood that leaving even a single of resistance can ignite a devastating fire of revenge and recovery. Consider the metaphor of a fire. If you leave even one glowing ember unattended, it can reignite into a raging inferno. Similarly, an enemy who survives defeat will harbor resentment and seek opportunities for retaliation. Throughout history, leaders who failed to apply this law suffered dire consequences, while those who embraced it secured lasting dominance. Consider Cardinal Richelieu, the chief minister of France under King Louis XIII. He systematically eliminated political enemies through imprisonment, exile, and execution, ensuring no opposition could rise again. His ruthless tactics stabilized France and elevated its power in Europe. Joseph Stalin provides a stark example from the 20th century. His Great Purge of the 1930s eliminated millions through executions, gulags, and forced confessions, crushing not just bodies but the spirits of potential dissenters. This ensured his iron grip on Soviet power, though at tremendous human cost. From a psychological perspective, total annihilation breaks the enemy's spirit. When defeat is absolute, survivors lose hope and the will to continue fighting. This creates a lasting deterrent, as potential allies see the futility of resistance. In the modern business world, Amazon exemplifies this law. Through aggressive pricing, rapid innovation, and market expansion, they've crushed traditional retailers like Borders and Circuit City, leaving little room for recovery. Competitors who survived learned to adapt or perished. The consequences of incomplete victory are severe. History shows that enemies allowed to survive often return stronger, fueled by resentment. Napoleon Bonaparte's failure to crush Britain completely after Trafalgar led to his ultimate defeat at Waterloo. In contrast, complete victories create lasting peace through fear and submission. In summary, Law 15 teaches that mercy and victory often proves more costly than ruthlessness. Leaders must weigh the long-term consequences of their actions, choosing between temporary peace and permanent security. Law 16 teaches that too much circulation makes the price go down. The more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. This principle is rooted in basic economics. Scarcity drives up value. In supply and demand curves, when supply is limited, prices rise because people desire what they cannot easily obtain. Consider the paradox of value. Water is essential for life, but cheap because it's abundant. Diamonds are non-essential, but command high prices because they are scarce. The same principle applies to personal power and reputation. Constant presence dilutes your impact, while strategic absence concentrates your value. Modern businesses exploit this principle through limited editions and exclusive releases. Consider Coca-Cola's special edition bottles. They create excitement and value, not just through the product itself, but through controlled scarcity. People line up and pay premiums for items that are temporarily unavailable, proving that absence can actually increase desire and perceived worth. Strategic withdrawal requires careful timing and purpose. It's not about hiding forever, but about creating a deliberate pause that makes your return more anticipated. Historical figures like political leaders have used this tactic, stepping back from the spotlight to let tensions build, then re-emerging with renewed influence. The key is knowing when to leave so that your absence becomes a statement rather than a disappearance. The power of this law lies in the stark contrast it creates. A crowded room feels ordinary, but an empty space where you once stood commands attention. In social dynamics, your temporary absence makes people realize what they miss about your presence. However, overuse this tactic and you risk being forgotten entirely. The art is in the timing. Withdraw just enough to increase respect, but return before your absence diminishes your honor. Law 17 explores the psychological power of unpredictability. Humans are creatures of habit, constantly seeking patterns and familiarity in the behavior of others. When you are predictable, you unwittingly hand control to those around you, allowing them to anticipate your moves and prepare countermeasures. The key strategy is to reverse this dynamic. Instead of conforming to patterns, cultivate deliberate unpredictability. When your actions appear random and devoid of clear purpose, opponents are forced into a state of constant uncertainty. This mental exhaustion occurs as they futilely attempt to decode your intentions, draining their energy and focus. When unpredictability is pushed to its limits, it transcends mere strategy and becomes a tool for intimidation and terror. Throughout history, leaders and warriors have employed erratic behavior to paralyze their adversaries, creating an atmosphere of suspended terror where opponents live in constant apprehension of the next move. From a psychological perspective, this law taps into humanity's fundamental discomfort with chaos. Our brains are wired to seek patterns, and when those patterns are absent, cognitive dissonance sets in. In strategic contexts, like chess or warfare, unpredictable maneuvers can dismantle carefully constructed defenses. Modern applications extend to financial markets and corporate negotiations, where unexpected decisions can create volatility and advantage. In contemporary settings, unpredictability manifests in viral social media campaigns, sudden policy shifts, or innovative business pivots. Leaders like Elon Musk exemplify this through bold, unconventional moves that keep competitors guessing. However, excessive unpredictability can erode trust and invite retaliation, so it should be wielded judiciously for maximum effect. Law 18 teaches us that while the world is full of dangers and enemies, building fortresses to isolate ourselves creates more risks than it prevents. Isolation cuts us off from vital information, makes us conspicuous targets, and leaves us vulnerable. Instead, we must circulate among people, find allies, and use the crowd as our shield. In a perilous world where enemies surround us, a fortress appears as the ultimate protection. We build walls, moats, and defenses to keep threats at bay, as seen in historical fortifications like the Doomsday Castle with its murder holes, bent entrances, and arrow slits. However, this isolation creates its own dangers. Without access to the outside world, we lose crucial information about emerging threats. Our isolation makes us stand out as obvious targets. And without allies nearby, we become easy prey for coordinated attacks. In contemporary society, social isolation manifests through factors like caring responsibilities, financial stress, or low self esteem, creating a web of disconnection. This modern fortress building leaves us without the protective networks that could warn us of dangers or provide support in crises. Isolated individuals become prime targets for exploitation, as they lack the social intelligence gathered from interacting with diverse groups. Without allies to share information, we're blind to opportunities and threats alike. Rather than retreating into isolation, the law advises us to mingle within society, using the crowd as our natural defense. Like herd immunity, where vaccinated individuals protect the group by limiting disease spread, being part of social networks creates protective barriers against threats. In a crowd, enemies find it difficult to target individuals specifically, as seen in the shielded group formation. This circulation allows us to gather intelligence from multiple sources, identify potential allies, and build relationships that serve as our true fortifications against danger. History provides stark lessons through examples like the Kowloon walled city in Hong Kong. Originally built as a defensive fortress, it became a densely packed, ungoverned slum where isolation fostered crime, unregulated businesses, and social breakdown. Without external connections or oversight, the city's inhabitants suffered from the very isolation meant to protect them. Only through integration and government intervention did the area transform into an orderly park, demonstrating how breaking down fortresses and embracing community leads to stability and progress. Law 19 emphasizes the critical importance of understanding the people you interact with in power dynamics. In a world filled with diverse personalities and hidden motivations, assuming uniform reactions to your strategies can lead to disastrous consequences. People respond differently to deception, manipulation, or confrontation. Some individuals may forgive and forget, while others harbor grudges that fuel lifelong vendettas. This variability stems from personal backgrounds, cultural influences, and psychological makeup. Offending or deceiving the wrong person can trigger relentless pursuit of revenge, consuming significant time, resources, and emotional energy. Historical examples show how misjudged rivals have toppled powerful figures through persistent opposition. The metaphor of wolves in sheep's clothing illustrates how dangerous individuals often appear harmless. Beneath benign exteriors lurk aggressive, vengeful natures, ready to strike when provoked. Therefore, strategic power requires meticulous evaluation of potential adversaries and allies. Assess their resilience, connections, and capacity for retaliation before engaging. This law underscores that true mastery involves not just skillful action, but also prudent judgment in selecting targets. While the 48 Laws of Power provides valuable insights into power dynamics and strategic thinking, it raises significant ethical questions that demand careful examination. Many of the laws explicitly advocate for tactics that involve deception, manipulation, and strategic maneuvering that can blur the line between effective leadership and unethical behavior. A core concern is the book's endorsement of deception. Laws like conceal your intentions and use selective honesty teach strategies that prioritize personal gain over transparency and trust building. This approach can create environments where genuine communication becomes rare and relationships are built on shaky foundations of half-truths and calculated omissions. Critics argue that these manipulative tactics can foster widespread distrust and damage interpersonal relationships. When power strategies become the norm, genuine connections suffer, leading to isolation and weakened social bonds. The book's emphasis on using enemies and maintaining suspicion can create toxic environments where collaboration and mutual respect are undermined. Prominent critics, including leadership experts and ethicists, warn that the book's immoral approach can lead to harmful consequences. Some argue it oversimplifies complex social dynamics and encourages Machiavellian behavior without regard for ethical boundaries. Educators and psychologists have noted that while the historical examples are fascinating, applying these laws without moral consideration can result in personal and professional harm. The key is to approach these laws with a critical mindset, weighing their strategic value against potential ethical costs. Power gained through manipulation often proves fragile, while sustainable success requires integrity and trust. Readers should consider the long term consequences of their actions and strive for a balance between effective power strategies and ethical responsibility. As we conclude our exploration of the 48 laws of power, let's examine how these timeless principles remain vital in our digital age. In the era of social media and artificial intelligence, the principles of the 48 laws of power continue to hold significant relevance. From building personal brands on platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn to navigating corporate politics in remote work environments, understanding power dynamics has become even more essential. Specific laws find new applications in digital contexts. For instance, Law 6 emphasizes courting attention, which translates perfectly to viral marketing strategies and carefully crafted social media posts that build personal influence and power. Law 29, which urges planning to the end, resonates with AI-driven decision-making tools and data analytics that allow for more thorough and predictive strategic planning in business and personal endeavors. However, the book's emphasis on deception and manipulation has sparked ethical debates. Critics argue that some laws promote amorality, leading to growing calls for conscious power, applying these principles responsibly while considering the impact on others and society. Cultural differences also play a crucial role. Power dynamics in collectivist societies may differ from individualistic ones. For example, blending Greene's laws with Confucian principles of harmony requires careful adaptation to avoid cultural misunderstandings. In conclusion, the 48 Laws of Power provide an invaluable framework for navigating the complexities of human interaction, both online and offline. By adapting these principles to modern contexts while remaining mindful of ethical implications and cultural nuances, individuals can harness power constructively. Remember, power is not destiny, it is choice. Applied judiciously, these laws can help you achieve your goals while maintaining integrity.